everybody, welcome to Plat Chat, episode 36. This is take 2 of our intro because, there's a couple.
The first one.
The first one I made fun of the French. Luckily, Kurt started streaming instead, so we leaked a bunch of stuff as well. Gonna have to take that VOD down. We got some good news to open things up with. Johnny's got a haircut. You want to show it off?
Yeah.
Nope.
No. Can you take your headset off, please?
Can we see it?
Why? Why is this required?
Do a Fortnite for us.
Yeah, do a Fortnite dance.
I don't think it looks that bad. I think it looks quite good. You know, you're going to go for the clean zero.
It's definitely a big change, though, for Jonathan. Like, normally
looks
Johnny,
very much like my haircut.
Yeah, normally Johnny has this like cuddly persona, you know, where he's cute and boyish charm, and now he's got like the fuck boy haircut. Yeah. It's like, hey.
You can tell Johnny reads the YouTube comments because everybody wants him to be more like me and Bren.
That's not true.
Intelligent and
informed. That's not true. Who would want that?
He's deciding to try and look like Bren and I, and maybe that'll give him our superior intelligence.
Well, who wants that? I don't believe it at all. If you think that, drop a comment down below.
Okay. All right. Second good news that we have is that we're releasing a new podcast, and it's premiering later today. If you're watching this on the dot because you're an avid viewer, we have a Valorant podcast, and it's going to be. We don't actually have a name for it yet because we are useless. If you've got any name suggestions, actually put them in the comments.
What if we call it? 5 heads.
I mean, genius, Johnny. Genius. Yeah.
Well, we couldn't name it after something in the Valorant ranking system because then we would just call it Valorant, and then it would just
literally be called Plat Chat again. Because they use the same
Plat Chat
format.
would work, right?
Well, actually, Plat's pretty good in Valorant. So maybe we call it Bronze Chat.
That's the issue.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of that point, we're starting a new podcast. You can look in your subscription feeds. You can click on our channel, whatever, and it will come up. It might even be in the YouTube algorithm already. It might be in the autoplay section. I actually don't know, but we don't have a name for it. But we're going to be discussing everything: the release, the pro scene as it stands right now, the top teams, the top players, pretty similar stuff. So, without further ado, let me pull up my teleprompter. First order,
aka cell phone.
Cell phone. It is the Toronto Defiant. Why do they suck? Go.
Yeah.
I thought this was a question. I mean, I thought we were gonna have the fastest episode ever. Usually, you ask me a question I don't want to talk about, and we end it. I was like, oh man, Bren wants to end it already.
I mean, I don't want to talk about the Toronto Defiant. I don't know about you, Matt.
A lot of people want to talk about them, though. I get this question constantly in my Twitch chat, which is like, Toronto they're so popular, right? They have so many players that are. The players themselves have been good on other teams before. And so I think the general population of fans is just pretty confused why this team has not even been like middle of the pack. They are just poo-poo.
What if we work our way backwards through the season? Or actually, that doesn't make sense at all. Anyway, why the hell did we rank them at like 13, Josh? What happened there?
In our preseason power rankings, which neither Bren nor Matt were part of, so I'm sure they're just going to rip them to pieces right now.
I think I rated Toronto even higher.
Probably.
Me and Bren were doing our own power rankings in the off season. You know, we didn't feel the need to record them.
Yeah, the Toronto Defiant though, I thought would do fairly well because they had very experienced players that were kind of accustomed to being able to like roam around the place. You know?
Holy shit! Who can tell you where the fuck you ranked Toronto when you got that fucking creature on the left? Oh my god! Look at that.
He's got no eyebrows and a dreadful.
Well, you rated him at 12.
Bro, that doesn't look like you. It doesn't look like you, dude.
Yeah,
Justice are higher though, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oh my!
I mean, we got it just about right. Like Toronto and Justice are just around the same level as each other.
What's the shit from Stranger Things? Like the upside down. That's like the upside down version of you, like the fucking demigod version of Sideshow.
I think we massively overrated schedule. Obviously, that sounds stupid now because we're playing all the games online. So, like, of course, we overrated schedule compared to what actually happened. But Justice and Toronto were two teams that we thought would do better because there was a lot of travel in the league.
Yeah.
Toronto because of their veteran experience, Justice because they didn't have to travel very much at all.
I think if we weren't known as some of the brightest analysts in this scene, and we actually like had to compete with other analysts, that YouTube series Sideshow might have been the death of our careers.
Mate, have you seen that Jane and Avast actually did a review of all of the preseason power rankings now? That's what they did for their like mid-season review. And Platjats was the 4th best, man.
Wait, really?
The thing about that,
most people were dreadful.
You guys were the 4th best, and you didn't even have Brennon either. You used Costa. Imagine how much more accurate they would have been.
I'm surprised at the time that Costa didn't fight any of you to put Valiant higher.
He definitely did. He definitely did.
You put Valiant in 19.
No, he eventually fought for them to get way higher.
In the final. He did like a
so why do paychecks came through?
So why do we think Toronto are doing so poorly? Because we had them pretty high coming into this. For me personally, when I looked at this roster, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting that much, to be honest, from this team. I don't think their tank line is particularly good.
No.
Compared
to the league average
is weak. Yeah, I mean, look at like who do they have a better tank line than?
Like arguably, they could have had a better tank line than the Valiant, but the Valiant has ended up being
better.
pretty decent.
Like
Boston, you could say before Punk was added. I think they had a better tank line than Boston.
But like today, who do they have a better tank line than right now?
Maybe Houston. Maybe.
Is it really? Are we being fair here? Look,
no.
I know, okay? It's not about the Nevix shit, okay? I'm just asking, like, is this like a player issue or is it like a team issue? Because keep in mind that they had their coach depart in the middle of the season, and now like Surefour hasn't really been in the roster. Like, I don't really know what's going on with this organization. I'd love to know what their practice routine is like, and how their like hierarchy is within the team and how like it's structured, because it's I hate applying labels without having the proper information. So I'm not, I'm asking questions here, but like I'd love to know if they're like putting themselves to the same standards as like a team like the Florida Mayhem. Like, do they have the same motivation as the Florida Mayhem? Like, I'd love to have some insight into this team and how they are practicing, because it always feels like they're not as polished as the other teams in the league. It sort of feels like they're bringing what we know to the table, but it's always like 5% less than what you want to see from them. And I'd love to know what's going on within the team.
I think the argument against it being like a team issue in that regard is that they don't look like horribly uncoordinated. Like, they're able to put things together in that space. And they also have players who have had success in the past on other teams and that have played quite well. Like, even Logix, for how kind of poor they are this season, he has played quite well in a lot of moments.
Bright spot.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they have, I mean, okay, so what players, when you think of success, who are you thinking of?
Well, I think like Surefour's had success in the league, Kariv as well. Logix has had individual success, not really team success. I mean, they've had players who have been relatively good in terms of a league average. They haven't had players who are like, I mean, outside of Surefour, right? Like season 1, I think you can make like a case like he was one of the better damage dealers, but like they haven't had anybody like in Kariv as well last year in terms of supports. But they've been league average or slightly above average in a lot of different spots. The only part of this lineup that was unproven coming into the season has been the tanks. That's the only reason why I kind of mentioned the tanks at the beginning of it.
And even then, I don't know if Beast is the problem. I actually agree with Johnny completely, saying that when I watch this team, I don't think I could pin it down to an individual's lack of skill, right? It's not. I don't think it comes down to any individual with Toronto. Definitely feels like when they go up against teams, the one thing they're missing is some sort of structure when it comes to playing the game. And you have teams that, when you look at them on paper, like the Valiant, for example, not that good when it comes to the actual individual players. But they still put together a decent performance against top teams. Why is that? It's the coaching structure, right? So, I mean, the coach is leaving, not really helping, obviously, with that. But I think this is a team that could definitely be higher with the right leadership.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to, leadership. But it doesn't necessarily mean coaches as well. I think they lack some kind of decisiveness in game. A lot of the time when I watch this team, they're playing safe. They're trying to minimize mistakes. They're trying to just play to not lose anybody in a fight. And that's all right. That's pretty good. That's going to get you wins over bad teams. But against a lot of teams in the league, you need to be able to actually capitalize on opportunities. And I don't really see that unless Surefour's in the lineup or if Logix is making some kind of nutty play.
I think that's what kind of frustrates me more with Toronto than like a team like Boston or Vancouver. Like, because those teams I think are just far away, right? Like they're not close. Like Toronto has close games against good teams. Like they just fall like that short. Like every time it feels like they're able to put together some pretty decent performances, like take maps, like push teams pretty competitively. It's just like that little extra polish that doesn't get them over the top.
Yeah, and I think a great comparison is actually how the Vancouver Titans looked with Shockwave in the lineup, which is just like a new, fresh player that brings a ton of energy to the Vancouver Titans and brings sort of like an aggressive identity to that team. And then you can sort of build around that and let the rest of the team flourish. I feel like the Toronto Defiant, sometimes they are trying to play the most optimal meta and like forcing it a bit of the time, and then you have to adjust every week. And like, I would love to see Toronto try to establish that kind of an identity, and it's a lot easier said than done. I mean, being like a former pro, it's so hard to find your strength as a team and then build around that, like the same way New York built around Jonax and Yada, right? It's so hard to make that work. But I'd still love to see them try to build, like, what happens if we just enable Karib to just
I really like your point there, Johnny, as well. And I'd like to say that from my own experience as a current pro, it is difficult to be able to find that kind of system within your team. And I think that he's left. He just disconnected from the call. Now you're just in the darkest hole possible. How has your lighting changed so dramatically just from entering and leaving a call?
Oh man,
that's what you get for rage quitting, Jonathan. You got to stay.
You gotta pay your bills, Johnny. They almost remind me of that. This is, I guess, kind of maybe like not a super odd comparison, but like they almost remind me of like the Valiant last year, but not as good. Like where the Valiant last year could have like they could lose like 8 games in a row that were super close, but then they could also beat like a top team like on the whim. Like they're not as good as that Valiant team was, I think, last year with the capabilities of like having a really good run and bringing it back. But I feel like though Toronto,
they had a pretty close game against the Shock. I wouldn't really say that they nearly beat them, but they did have a pretty close game against them. But
that was the week the Shock were having a lot of problems with motivation as well. But I still think there's some merit to be applied to it.
They play teams close. They never, well, I say never. They sometimes totally collapse, but generally speaking, they don't totally collapse. They make things close, but they can't win. They can't actually get it over the line.
Yeah, they don't get blown out. Really, they always keep it competitive, but like you never feel like they're the favorite in a matchup unless like they're playing like one of like 3 teams pretty much.
Yeah, and even when they played against the Titans in the May Melee, they won that one 3-2. It was pretty squeaky. So
oh my god,
dude,
if Kari doesn't clutch there.
Yeah. What do you think the fix is for this team then? Because it's all good being able to identify a problem, but if it's something like an issue that's a bit more vague rather than being a single player, then what is actually the fix? I mean, is this down to just the coaching staff?
I don't know if it is just the coaching staff. I think it's a little bit unfair to just blame it on the coaching staff, right? Because there's a lot that goes into this season right now. Almost every single pro player has talked about the sort of their mentality during the COVID situation and how their motivation's getting lost, how they're getting burnt out to a degree as well because of the amount they have to practice because of the hero pools. I'm not going to go into it, chat. Don't worry. I think that it could be just a mixture of issues, right? Like, there's a lot of veteran presence on this team, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Johnny, but I think one of the easiest things to fall into when you are a veteran presence on a team is probably that kind of burnout factor, losing passion for the game to a degree, maybe not really seeing the goal at the end of the tunnel, and that could be one thing that's affecting them. But also, I think getting in a strong arm in terms of the coaching would probably help out this team in spades.
Yeah, I got to say, I really appreciate how Kookie works with the Florida Mayhem. I think that he's been able to pass down a really good system from the top. And, you know, whenever I've interacted with Kookie as well, I feel like he's improved my abilities drastically. I think that kind of hierarchy is
this has to end.
Required.
This is not happening.
What do you mean?
Bro,
what do you mean, Johnny?
No, when we did head-to-heads, dude, he referred to Florida as my team, dude.
Yeah, what do you mean? That is my team. I don't know what you mean, Jonathan.
Look at that smoggy grin, dude.
To be
fair, that's my team. I don't know what you mean.
Are they one of the teams in the league that doesn't have a backup flex tank and main tank? So they have no other options, right?
Yeah.
I
I feel like this sense of decisiveness can come from your main tank. Like if you had a main tank, if this team in an alternate universe had been built with a veteran presence at the main tank instead of Beast, who's coming up, and yeah, he's the shot caller to start with, but now I think it's transferred over to Cruz. And I will say that I think that they seem to have improved since Cruz was in the lineup as well, just by having that kind of go-get-him factor.
So
on the
here's
team.
My problem with that. I don't think you can put it on Beast too, because he's the rookie. He's supposed to be the new guy, and then you have the veterans on the lineup. So you were asking the question, how do you improve or like fix this problem? And not necessarily just for the Toronto Defiant, but if I was like on a team and wanted to be good overall. So right now we have 3 different styles. I like to say we have brawl, bunker, and dive, right? And that's general classifications, but we can all agree on those 3, right? You know, there are different kinds of dive, whatever, but I think you just have to find your strength out of those 3 and then sort of build on that. And I sort of like, I believe I watched Tactical Crouch, and they talked about how on Florida Mayhem they focused so much on putting their players on signature heroes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's so simple. It's so simple. But like it works. It like just makes sense. Like, hey, what if we put our players on their best heroes? And then we just try to build with that and try to cooperate with each other so that everyone on the team can flourish and have the most impact possible. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the entire concept of hero pools. And like, you always have to adapt. You always have to play the meta. You always have to play the best comp. No, play, like you have to compensate and play the best comp for you and the best comp for the week.
Is that why they play you on the Pharah, Josh?
Exactly, because that's my best hero. And then you put Yaki on the Tracer, you put BKB on the Ash. It's all good business, isn't it, at the end of the day?
This is kind of what... I was going to agree with Johnny and say that this is what is that? Is that wine out the bottle?
Just wine out the bottle. It's been a tough week.
Yeah.
But if it just takes last week, we're in bed.
A long episode. Fucking
I think personally, to get onto to narrow in on the Toronto Defiant and avoid, mention of my own team, that it comes down to Surefour and Cruz, really. If you're not going to make a change to this lineup, I agree that you can't rely on Beast. I was offering a hypothetical of like if they had picked up another main tank, but I think that you're right. You can't rely on Beast. So that means yeah, maybe. I've seen you boom in super in the neutral recently on stream.
Dude, it's just a matter of time before I get picked up by San Francisco, and then I'm going to absolutely destroy you.
Sure. Yeah, we'll see about that rematch. Yeah. But I think that Surefour is this leadership presence from the front line, from the DPS, and Cruz is the leadership presence from the back line. I want to see Surefour in as much as humanly possible because, although agility is pretty good, I feel like just relying on Surefour and Logics, if you can get away with it, is going to be your best lineup for the Toronto Defiant in terms of that leadership as well as the skill.
The Toronto fans have been diving in on that, though, and they're like, I mean, they don't have a great map win rate when Surefour is in. Why do you think that is?
I mean, Surefour is a player who he kind of has an idea of like how the game should be played and how they should be playing it, and you don't know if the rest of the team is able to execute that or thinks that way, right? Like, I've always found him to be like an extremely intelligent player who needs people around that kind of are intelligent and can think that way as well. And maybe like it's just a difference in terms of how they should play or what they should be playing.
This is just a hypothetical, but I feel like sometimes, oh my God, who made that album? It's called Suffering from Success.
DJ Khaled.
Is that like DJ Khaled?
DJ Khaled.
Nice.
Hear me out.
The callback, dude.
So sometimes I feel like, so Surefour, okay, we look at him as a player. Who is he as a player? He's just a damage player that can flex around multiple roles, and is pretty consistent at doing that. He's a dweeb, sure, yeah. But
Actually, I think he said he doesn't want to be called a weeb.
Wait, a weeb, not a dweeb.
Yeah,
Johnny.
Johnny said a dweeb.
I don't know what the difference is. I don't know.
You don't know what the difference is? A dweeb?
I haven't researched it.
A dweeb is like an insult for a nerd.
Yeah, you just insulted him.
That's like the guy that gets pushed into the lockers.
I'm so sorry.
That's even more insulting saying you don't know what the difference between a dweeb and a weeb is.
Oh, Surefour, dude, Surefour, clap back, bro. Who
is out here? Who is out here on Google searching for definition of dweeb? Like, are you?
It's not your first language, Johnny. Don't worry.
I bet you Team Canada with Surefour, they would have gotten past the Thailand group stages, dude. No way Surefour would have Canada.
This conversation is dumb. I'm moving on. So what I was saying is, I think sometimes, because Surefour is this very popular figure within the Overwatch community, he's a big streamer, has a big following, and a lot of pressure on him. And I think sometimes that can actually have a negative consequence to your gameplay. And I think when we're talking about the Toronto Defiant, we can't look on Surefour as a leader of this team purely because he's a big name and he has a big following. Sometimes the best things for players like Surefour is actually just to have leadership around him and just let him do his thing. And like, we shouldn't question Surefour or like put too much pressure on him. You disagree, Sideshow? I just think that sometimes...
I've seen him be a leader in the past. Like, I've seen him on the Gladiators clearly in certain metas, not in all metas, I'm sure. But like, when he was playing the Reaper in the playoffs, it was very clear that he was orchestrating like a lot of those plays, and it was really successful. So if someone needs to step up, I feel like the responsibility is primarily on Cruz, but then also on Surefour.
I'll end this segment here unless Matt wants to add anything else.
No, I'm good. Yeah,
I'll end this here.
It comes down to Lane. He has to tell us.
I want to be a leader or no?
When I think of Surefour, do you remember when they were doing the Dodgers Stadium thing, and they were getting a pro player to throw the first pitch at the Dodgers game?
Yeah.
Do you remember this? And Surefour was the player they picked. I remember thinking, "Oh fuck, dude, this always goes badly. Whenever you get like a gamer in those scenarios when they're like throwing a first pitch or whatever or doing whatever." It always goes badly. Do you know? Have you found it, Kurt? You looking for it, dude? Surefour fucking nailed it. You gotta listen. Surefour, if you're listening to this and you're ever feeling what Johnny's saying, where you're like the pressure's getting to you, just remember.
What have I? What? That's not what I said at all.
Look at this first pitch, baby. Here he goes. Rolls up to the base. I don't know. I don't really know much baseball terminology. Slangs it out. Nails it, baby. Nails it.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that guy was like, holy shit, this guy was able to do it.
Yeah, they were like, holy fuck. I mean, there's been countless celebrities that whiff that. So Shovel comes out there, he slangs, he lays down the girth, and that's what you need. Sometimes in the game, you've got to lay down the girth. Anyway.
Tonight,
that's
Bren streaming, just chatting, reviewing baseball pitches on stream.
Laying down the girth,
yeah.
Erster and Atlanta. Where is Erster?
Where the fuck is Erster? They wish him happy birthday on Twitter the other day, but we still don't know where he is.
Bro, he's
really? They wish him happy birthday on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it was a picture
like
of him with his arm around Daco.
When stuff like this happens, though, when a player goes missing and it seems almost inexplainable, it's usually some internal things. And if has the team offered an explanation? Is it a medical thing?
No, as far as I know.
But for me, okay, I think we can say like I would love to see Erster in the lineup, but I don't think their damage dealers have been bad. Like I thought Baby Bay and Edison have been all right. Times.
I'm not going to say they were bad.
I
just think Erster could add something.
Yeah, I don't think the damage dealers are the problem, so to speak.
Me and Josh, I think, talked about this, whether it was like on a head-to-head or some other thing, but it's like in this situation, like where would you play Erster?
Yes, that's okay. I do agree that Erster absolutely should have been played previously. He's only played half of the matches that Atlanta Reign have played. He's only been fielded in half the matches.
He was my rookie
majority
of the
league. Yeah, majority of the league, we've had like May metas. He's an unbelievable May.
We've talked about
Hanzo. He's an unbelievable Hanzo. He was the best main Hanzo last year.
We talked about him as an MVP potentially, like towards the end of last year.
He's bonkers. He was an amazing Doomfist as well. Like, this guy was poised to be an MVP. He really was like on the cusp of being able to break out and be in that conversation. And then he just goes magically missing, and he's only played in half the matches. Now, in the most recent meta, in Echo Ash, okay, if Edison is the best Echo on the team, then Baby Bay's the best Ash. He's only really competing for that Echo spot. And so, all right, if I'm supposed to believe the coaches that they are considering still Erster and they haven't hidden him away in some basement somewhere, then all right, fair enough. I'll give you a pass on that. Anytime May is played, though, fuck off with that shit. Put Erster in the game, or tell me why he isn't in.
There must be a reason why they're not playing him, though.
Well, you need to say something then. You can't just get away with not saying anything and leaving your fans with no idea where your star player is.
Speaking of the Atlanta Reign, Massa's only just followed me back on Twitter.
Player of the week.
Ego.
Player of the week. Yeah. No. Not after
the follow.
I don't know. I go on, Matt.
Nah, I'm not like, I would love to see Urser more. I'm just not sure right now is the time.
Why?
I just surprised he wasn't the Echo player.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised.
That was a little bit surprising. Yes, I would say that. But they make this big pickup in Edison. Everybody wanted to see him, and it's not like he's been a disappointment of sorts. I do think, though, like Josh mentioned, it is quite weird we haven't seen him in stuff that's more centered around the May and other types of compositions where he can be fielded. But maybe they want to build more chemistry between Edison and Baby Bay, that they feel like Baby Bay is by far and away their best hit scan, which is probably true. And then they feel like Edison gives them the most flexibility in that other role.
Yeah, and I think I think that only makes sense when we had this specific recent meta where it's double hit scan. But that, to focus on the recent matches, ignores the period of time where they were just never playing him. He just went magically missing. Yeah. And I don't have any confidence that they're going to sub him back in if we return to a situation where Erster, like, for example, even the Tracer, I think it's highly debatable whether Erster or Edison's the best Tracer on that team. We've seen Erster pop the fuck off. We've seen Edison have some great performances in contenders on the Tracer, although not a huge amount. And then we also know that Edison has kind of been getting his shit kicked in by the other Tracers in the league. Like, anytime he went up against Shax and he went up against Yaki, and he got pooed on by both of them. So Edison is...
Nobody poos on Erster, dude.
Yeah, well, it hasn't happened yet. So if it does happen, that'll be a first. I feel like it's indefensible at the moment, other than the Echo Ash meta, to not be running Erster.
Yeah, where I'm standing with this is, like, if we heard anything about Erster, if we saw Erster just like a few maps, if there was any word, I'd be fine with them fielding Edison. But the fact he's completely left out makes me wonder, like, hey, what's going on here? Because like, we could make our own eye test judgments and like see if Erster is better, or like we could understand if we saw what heroes he played in game, but we're not seeing anything.
If we're not seeing him at all,
a question mark.
If we're not seeing him at all, here's what's probably happening, right? Gonna add a little bit of speculation into the mix. Do what you will with it. But when you don't see players, chances are they've probably scrimmed with him. And for one reason, there's a reason why they're not playing with him. They've definitely been practicing with him, right? Could be anything. Could be that he's toxic. Not saying he is, but it could be a reason. Could be that he's not as good as other people thought. Some players do fall off. I know that's surprising to hear, but I think back to Birdring last year, and I think back to his performance, up, down, all over the bloody shop. And, London, I think, tried to replace him a couple of times, but in terms of swapping out with, what's his name?
Guard.
That's the one. But some players can just fall off like that sometimes. Could also be another reason. Could be right now that Edison's just not having a good time of it. Could be that he's toxic. Could be starting rumors for no reason. But listen, all I'm saying is, until the team gives a statement, until we get Brad on the line, we're probably not going to get a concrete answer other than just speculating. Now, I will say,
I think go on.
No, it's actually not important at all. What you're going to say is way more important.
Were you about to say the food?
Yeah.
Were you about to comment about the food?
Yeah, I was about to comment about the food.
I knew it. Yeah, I knew it. I don't mind that argument, and I think a lot of the time it does make sense, Bren. Most of the time, like for example, the exact same team, Dako wasn't being played last year. Dako was a fucking beast. Love that guy and what he was able to do actually on the field, and the fact that he was putting up ridiculous performances with Diva. But when it comes out like the reason at the end of the day that he wasn't fielded, he had some confrontation with Kodak and had to be, benched and disciplined and was sat there for that reason. And so, all right, fair enough. So even though historically, I think that's usually the case, that if someone isn't fielding a top player, it's for some kind of behind the scenes reasons. That assumes that coaches never make a mistake and field the wrong players. Whereas I actually think that does happen fairly frequently. I think that coaches can definitely make mistakes and not field the right players.
In pro Overwatch is that players never do anything wrong. Hey, players, they're wrong all the time. It's like there's so many variables in Overwatch that it's actually difficult to make the correct decisions. That's why you see some teams play Ana, and that's why you see some teams play Sen, because they have different opinions. And the entire point about competitive Overwatch is to figure out what is best. And the same applies to coaches. Sometimes coaches are right, sometimes they're wrong. Just because they make money from playing the game and being professional in Overwatch League doesn't make them right all the time.
Right.
And so it is possible, I think, that Erster is not being played simply because they don't see the value of him, or they don't think that he's as good, or they don't want to run composition and center around him. And I personally, from what I've seen, feel that is the wrong decision.
Right. Or they feel like they can get away with the DPS that they're running now, but they just don't have to make any changes to get what they want.
Bruh, hold up. Are you watching it on our scrims? Josh?
No, but from what we've seen in the matches, Erster is an unbelievable Mei player. And if you're running Edison on the Mei, which is what they did in weeks like, I think it was maybe 12 and 13, something like that. No, I think it was just before that. I think it was like 11. Maybe, I can't remember. But whenever they weren't fielding Erster recently, just before the Mei Melee, they were running weird like Torb McCree comps instead of running the Mei. But I fundamentally disagree with that strategy unless there's some behind the scenes reason why Erster isn't playing.
Right.
But that information is outdated, for one. Like, something could have changed with Edison. They could have just been unhappy with the way he was playing in the game. And also, you're lacking information because you don't know the most recent times he's played because you haven't watched scrims,
But that just assumes that you're making the assumption that something big did happen in scrims.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they played him and he wasn't particularly good in scrims.
Shift happened. Well, why? Okay, even that would be a dumb reason, in my opinion, because
you've seen him play at the highest level before.
You've seen him pound in matches month after month after month. If for 1 week the guy underperforms, you don't bench him for like 2 or 3 weeks in the future. I think that would be very short-sighted. If that
because the alternative implies that it's a problem internally, right? Where he doesn't work well with the team, or the other alternative to that is that the coaches have made a mistake.
Yes, those are the kind of broadly speaking the 3 possibilities here. I think.
I feel like you can say he doesn't fit with the team without saying that it's like something on the bad side. It could be very well like what I was talking about, where let's say they've tried Erster and Baby Bay, and then they've tried Edison and Baby Bay, and maybe there's more things that they can play at a higher level with Edison and Baby Bay, but the drop off isn't as bad from like when you have like Erster on his best heroes versus like Edison. You can then get away with running Edison all the time and build teamwork between those two. The odd part is we saw Baby Bay and Erster a lot last year, and they worked together pretty well. So that's kind of the oddest point of it.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Do you want to bait the fanboys? Do you want to say?
I think we'd like to see him more in general.
One team. If he had to go to another team, what team would it be? Bait the fanboys.
I'm gonna bait the shit out of people. When we were talking last week about NYXL and how they needed like an explosive player and somebody who could really like take over games and stuff, Erster would fucking be sick for that team. I think you could do some really nice things with Erster if you were in New York.
Erster?
Yeah. I think that would be pretty dope.
Okay, well, I'm going to end this by talking about the Lucas Salsagetti. It is a watermelon flavored hot candy. I just had it. I poured a sauce on it. The sauce was brown. It was very weird. But it tasted all right. It wasn't particularly hot.
Sauce?
Yeah, it came with some
candy
sauce.
That comes with sauce.
What?
Yeah, it came with sauce.
Candy sauce?
They're actually pretty good. It's like hot savory sauce for watermelon with spice on it.
Yeah.
And so the sweetness of the watermelon
what is
and
this?
the spice.
Candy?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I would give this a 7 out of 10 personally. I don't eat sweets, so I wouldn't be eating it on a regular basis. But pretty good. A little bit messy though. I don't really know if you could eat it just out and about. But I don't know if you're like me and you don't like messy food. I'm not a big fan of messy food. Eat it
out and about.
Out and about in the middle of quarantine.
What? No, but like around. You know what I mean. You're on a bus or something. I don't know. Anyway,
on a bus.
They need to make up a word for quarantine and curfew at the same time.
Yeah.
God.
Curfew.
Okay. Where do the gladiators fit in the ecosystem of the league? Now, I don't really know what this title implies, other than
all right.
Are we just asking where are the gladiators right now?
Yeah, I think it's not just that though, but like where do we expect them to go as well? Because at the start of the league, most people are saying, okay, gladiators have been top 5 back-to-back seasons, basically, right? So in order to, most people coming in said that this was pretty similar. Like it's a slight downgrade when it comes to the DPS, but it's an upgrade when it comes to the tanks. People still had high hopes for them. There was talk about them being a top team all the way up until recently, and then they've shit the bed. And actually, when you look at the standings, they're pretty far down. Like, are they even good?
This is a team where I struggle with so much because I think they have the potential to get there. But then when you kind of look inside yourself and you're like, all right, do you actually believe they can? I'm not entirely sure. I look at where they are right now. They're in 12th.
Yeah.
4 and 5. The teams in NA above them are the Valiant, the Reign, the Eternal, Mayhem, Shock, and Fusion. Can I see them passing any of those teams in the second half? Not really. And then also, could I see Dallas passing them potentially? I just don't know. I thought this team would be really solid because I love their tank line and I love the supports, but I'm just not sure they have enough to get themselves into that upper half. They'll beat the piss out of everybody else, right? No, they'll Boston. Oh yeah, apart from Boston, right. The Boston's their kryptonite, but the Justice, the Titans,
But they should, in theory, yeah.
They should, in theory. I don't think they can get to the top though, or near the top. And I think it's a product of a lot of roster moves in the offseason, but I also think it's a product of a lot of teams getting better in the offseason as well, where they kind of stayed the same or got worse potentially.
I also think it's a product of their volatility as a team. Because, DP made that video where he talked about the fact that they tried to be very proactive and make a lot of proactive calls and take engages and aggression sometimes that, it ends up unfortunate sometimes, but they try to be proactive and always try to engage pretty creatively and etc. So I can sort of stand behind that and be like, well, that's good, and all. But at some point, you're also going to get caught off guard and lost fights you shouldn't have lost because you tried to be that proactive and try to win those fights pretty creatively. So I think on paper, I actually think this is a good team. I think they have tons of potential. And when they hit their stride and when they reach their peak potential, I think this could be a very good team. But because of their volatile nature, they haven't really established that consistency or they haven't really raised their low, what the fuck is it called?
The skill floor? I don't know.
Yeah, their skill. Yeah, they're they're they need to narrow the spectrum a little bit. You can't just be competing with everyone one.
Johnny goes, 20. What is this? And then he just starts flapping his arms around, and we all have to guess the word.
I'm just saying, if you compete with the bottom teams all the time, you need to win those matches decisively to establish yourself as a top team. But I think they're too volatile for their own good.
Are they the
right
gatekeepers?
No. You can't be gatekeepers if you're inconsistent.
Yeah, I don't think you can be gatekeepers if you lose to Boston.
Right. And I think Dallas Fuel has the potential to make a push past them in the second half, which puts them,
yeah, for sure.
Which puts them in a spot with Houston, Toronto, Washington,
so is
Vancouver.
The general takeaway then is that we don't really know where the Gladiators fit because they're just too up and down.
But yes, but I say that's where they could end up. And then if I didn't see either of these teams played and I saw this roster and I saw the Dallas Fuel roster, I would take this roster every single time. I like this roster of the Gladiators. Yeah, I do. But I just don't have confidence in how they play.
That's a very interesting head-to-head topic.
It is, yeah. I've always been pretty down on the Gladiators, and actually, I think that we did a topic about that, didn't we? Didn't we do like who won the OG note trade or something?
We did his birdering back, and then we did the who won the OG trade.
OG Decay, sorry.
OG Decay, yeah.
Which is directly comparing the Gladiators and the Dallas Fuel, and I think that that's becoming more and more relevant as time goes on. Now, my thing with the Gladiators was always their DPS line, and that was kind of, I was quite low on the Gladiators. I was much lower than everybody else. But the Gladiators, I want to focus on their tank line first, because for me, OG has still been super inconsistent this year. And I think that's been one of the root of their problems, is that, okay, the DPS line was always supposed to be your weakest element, and Birdring's actually done pretty well. So in some sense, the DPS line has done better than you might have expected. But the tank line was supposed to be potentially competing with the best in the league. And I don't think that OG's done that. I think that he got boomed by No Smite one week. He then got outplayed by Fusions on the Reinhardt when they played against Boston. These aren't performances that you want from somebody that you know is as talented as OG when he's at his peak.
We've always said with OG is that we said last year consistently that he was inconsistent. Doesn't make any sense to say, but I think if you go back to some of the early episodes, one of the things that we said with OG moving over to Gladiators was that we thought it was, at least this is from my viewpoint. I remember looking at this sort of acquisition and thinking, this is a great fit for him, because I think DP is going to be able to iron out some of these inconsistencies and you're going to have a fantastic main tank. But I completely agree with you, Josh. And I was waiting to see if anybody else thought the same until I brought up my thoughts, because I am a sheep and I must merely follow the most popular opinion at one time. But I completely agree with you. From watching their play, I think OG has still been inconsistent. He's still been a bit of a weak link for this team, whereas Birdring, who we'd expect to be that person, has not. He's been very consistent. Like, I think back to that Gumba tweet as well. Do you remember when the Gladiators were molding over the Valiant's comp after they beat them, and they were still molded over social media? It was just Birdring and Space just being consistently good. The rest of the team was just fucking wallowing in their own piss.
Yeah.
That's a way to put it.
I think that Jonathan's
in their own piss.
I think Jonathan's definitely got a point about Deepay's maybe shift in coaching mentality this year. And it might be one of those awful situations where a coach realizes that they need to take the next step to improve their team, but actually they still needed to focus on the fundamentals for one of their players. Like, the team as a whole might really need to benefit from this system of finding win conditions. I think that that's a huge thing to make the step into tier 1. But actually, you're dealing with a main tank that still needs to iron out his fundamentals, and asking him to find win conditions only promotes this inconsistency.
We see this, though, in professional sports all the time, where like a team like the Gladiators, right? Season 1, they're up there, they're one of the top teams, right? But they're not the top team. Last year, they were like top 5 the whole year, pretty much.
Yeah, I think back-to-back years they've been top 5.
But you never felt either year where they had a chance to win, right? Like, you would say, like, was there ever a year where you felt like they have a real shot to win the whole thing?
No,
not really.
Year 1 playoffs, maybe.
Except that Fisher was benched.
But Fisher wasn't playing.
Got benched, wasn't it? That was.
They had the remix. Where, like, I think there needed to be a shakeup with the lineup, because I don't think you are ever going to get further with the lineup that you had. Where now, although they're not performing at a high level, right? I still think the tank line's good. Like, I kind of look at OG and I kind of think of the way that we thought of Sato, where like he was high on mechanical skill, but just the consistency wasn't there. Like, eventually, like, he'll figure it out. Like, Space, I think, is still really strong as a player. I still feel like if they added or had 2 different damage dealers, like, and they build for next year, I think they could get right back into that top 4 conversation.
Where I disagree with you is that I think the problem for Sado was that his Reinhardt was actually just not up to par. I think that he showed that he has a great mindset and he knew how to practice and how to be efficient, and then he brought his Reinhardt up to the top level. Whereas OG, I think we know that OG can be a fantastic Reinhardt. But to me, it comes down to the mental. And it's not a fun topic to talk about because it's not as thrilling as like mechanical skill or like whatever. But, you know, it's pretty real that if you go up in these Reinhardt duels against people like Fusions, you have to be able to go into that server and just dominate the enemy Reinhardt. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, you question your fire strike or question your swing and shield, and then you shattered. And like, it all happens so fast that you really need to mentally be able to prepare for everything and always be ready for the next fight. And I don't know if OG is there. Look, I don't have any insight. I'm not claiming that he has a bad mental. Like, I don't know. But if I was like a manager of this team, I would ensure that our main tank player had like a performance coach or someone to talk to in that regard. Because I actually think that one of the reasons that OG is such a fantastic Winston is that he doesn't have this problem as much, because he can play Winston without having to worry about the other main tank necessarily, and can just kind of play the high ground his way. He can either decide if he want to take aggressive leaps and like decide what high ground he wants to take and like sort of play his own game and really flourish. Like, OG is one of the best Winstons in the league. Like, when I watched him play this Winston in the main melee, oh my lord. I remember last year we were talking about OG's Winston stats when he was on Dallas Fuel last year. Yeah. It's incredible. But I think when it comes to the Reinhardt specifically, I think it comes back to the mental game a little bit. And I think it really showed even dating back to his debut in the Overwatch League. I think they were playing like the Shanghai Dragons, and he was struggling against the Shanghai Dragons. He was charging too much, being too eager. You know, he was fresh into the league and he had maybe some nerves, charging too much. And like, he improved on that. But to take yourself to the next level and be a consistent Reinhardt, I mean, it's so hard. Like, when I was playing as Super the other day, like, I had nothing to lose, right? So I kind of just said YOLO and just kind of like played my own game. If I were to play against Super tomorrow after being cocky on Twitter and like in the stream and shit, I'd poo in the middle of the Reinhardt battle, because the mental game is so different because the circumstances. So it varies. That's why Reinhardt performances are so volatile, because the mindset, like the mental game, like, it's a meme. But it's actually right, because it comes down to it. Yeah. So, like, I think Johnny, that might be one. Again, I'm not labeling mental issues or anything. Like, I'm not labeling here, but I think that might be one of the reasons why OG is so inconsistent a little bit on the main take.
I remember you saying this, Johnny, a while ago with your own play, where you were getting in your own head playing as, like, Master Reinhardt players and stuff. I think it was on one of your posts that you made. But I remember reading that from you. It's an interesting point.
Yeah, and I was just holding shield because, like, I don't want to go down my rabbit hole for too long, but essentially, if you're a Reinhardt and like you are the one with all the marbles on the line, you don't want to mess up, so you just hold shield and you don't take risks because you're scared of messing up, and then it's a downward spiral where you're not proactive at all and you're not doing any plays because you're scared of making mistakes. And I'm not saying that OG is making these mistakes. I'm not saying he's passive. But these are like mental games that really matter when you're playing Reinhardt. So maybe that could be one of the reasons why OG is inconsistent.
I could see that when I took the 1v1 against Yaki as well. I could see him constantly backing off. You know, I had the mental advantage over him. I pushed it, Johnny. I pushed it, and he eventually cracked. He barraged, and I ended up coming out with the win famously. You might remember it. Famously. And anyway, so that's how I ended up playing for the Philadelphia.
I'm going to make a hot take here.
So anyway, my name is Chipset.
I'm making a hot take. Not really a hot take, but I'm making a claim right now. I think that Gladiators are going to be a top team, and today is the turning point. They're going to be a consistent top team.
Look, OG, I can see it.
I'm going to see. I think OG's going to iron out his issues, and you know why? Because I've been following his social media. And Johnny, I think you do have a point about the mental stuff, because OG is one of those players. I think he does take defeats quite harshly on his own mind. He's always tweeting socially. Hugo's running out the room. What's going on, Matt?
Yeah, Hugo got a haircut. I wanted to show everybody. He got a Johnny.
You just shave it off.
I think OG does
get a buzzer.
I think OG does get in his own head a little bit after losses and defeats like that. Takes a lot on his shoulders. But do you know why he's going to turn that around and fix it now? Because he started going to the fucking Iron Temple. I've seen him, bro. He's been working out. He's been cooking up meals.
Yeah.
He's been cooking the chicken, the broccoli. He's been eating clean. He's been posting images of ripped Korean men. And I'm saying, yes, OG. Get it, my son, because as soon as you get in that Iron Temple and start working out and you start seeing some gradual improvements, it unlocks a part of your mind, and then the serotonin starts flooding in. It's like the gates of Jerusalem open wide as they're taking the census, and here you are, OG. Sure. You're gonna be fine, kiddo. You're gonna be a top tank.
So if you think that OG is going to turn it around, do you believe that the Gladiators... So the Gladiators are currently 7th in North America when you look at the standings. They're 12th overall. Do you think they're going to be able to overtake the Valiant, stay ahead of Dallas Fuel, overtake Atlanta? Like, where do you see them...
I see them being...
If you see them rising, where do you see them?
I see them being a top 5
team. Okay, so they would have to overtake the Valiant and the Atlanta Reign.
Yeah. I think being top 5...
It's doable. With their roster, it's doable.
I think top 5 is super achievable. I think they could go on a playoff run as well, based on the talent they have. I mean, you can make some arguments maybe about Mirror, but at the same time...
We haven't talked about Mirror at all yet as well, but I feel like a broken record still talking about it, but I still haven't seen great performances from him, like kind of at all so far this year.
I've seen some good stuff from him. I think he's just feeding at some points. I think he's feeding at some points and like overextending. Like, can we talk about Bren now? Can we take this moment to talk about Bren? No, I'm just.
Do you think we'll see Jaru?
Jaru plays amazing for them, but
I think Mirror is still like this unpolished diamond. Like, I think he has the skill, but I think he's overextending a bit too much, being a bit too aggressive, and maybe that's part of like the Gladiators' philosophy. I don't know, but I think that he dies a bit too early sometimes, but it still has skill.
You know what I like? Give me the where should Erster go back? Erster to the Glads would turn them into a scary team.
Okay, all right. Erster to the Gladiators. I mean, he never has played for the Gladiators, so I don't know why you're saying go back.
No. Go like have them trade him. Like go to the Gladiator.
Okay, all right.
I would
that actually would be nasty. Erster on the Gladiators would be bonkers.
Erster and Birdring, yeah.
Erster and Birdring would be wild. Yeah, I think that would immediately level up this team, because if you want your playmaking,
it would make them better than
Atlanta. Yeah, it would. And also, another interesting thing to bring up here as well, when we talk about them overtaking the Valiant and overtaking or staying ahead of Dallas, they've beat both of those teams the last times that they've played them. They've never lost to Dallas, and they've never lost to the Valiant. The only team they've lost to that's underneath them is the Boston Uprising, when they got beaten by them 2-3. But the rest of the time, they're just losing to the teams above them.
But I think you do have to remember, because of how the schedule worked out in the first half of the season, what I imagine will happen in the second half is they will get to play against a lot of the East Coast teams, which in theory are the worst teams. So they will get more games against the Houstons, the Torontos, although they didn't beat Boston the last time. They'll get games against Boston. They'll have an opportunity to make a little bit of a run playing against some weaker teams.
If they were in the semifinals of the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, the overall playoffs?
Like the whole league. Or just
like it would be
I would be really surprised. I'd be incredibly surprised if they made it to the semifinals.
If it was just North America, I think it's possible.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's possible. I think they have the potential, and I think like not in a best case, because best case is making like a Philadelphia season 1-esque kind of run, where like they make the grand finals. I don't think that's really possible, but I could see them in like a semifinal if they improve from here, because I do think they have the potential to reach semis.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
But that's a far way,
because I mean, at that point, like you're putting there's 4 teams that make semis, and the Dragons and the Shock look like lock-ins. So it's like you're predicting them to be above one of Philly, Florida,
in
New
NA,
York,
in NA,
right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. In NA, I agree with you. I think they have the potential to try and make semifinals.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked with that at all if they did that.
but I think the point is they need to improve in order to get there. There are genuine issues with this Gladiators team that they still need to work on.
Well, I'm sure DK would really appreciate our 30 minutes of going in circles on the Gladiators. So I might watch the Gladiators movie tonight because I'm feeling a thrill.
That's a good movie. I was going to watch V for Vendetta because it seems apropos at the moment.
I haven't seen V for Vendetta.
You've never seen it?
That movie's so good. I love that movie.
I thought you were going to say it sucks because you famously have dreadful opinions on movies.
What?
You.
What movies in particular?
Dude, Matt thinks that the Transformers movies are better than Lord of the Rings. He is just a pegger to the maximum.
Because it's true.
You're a moron.
I'm moving this along. I don't care anymore. Listen, we've been making...
Beth has come to interrupt because she couldn't believe what I just said.
Yeah.
Oh, what was her take?
She's like, I can't believe...
Transformers is a better story.
Apparently, it has a better story. I mean, I can't. I'm not.
I mean, she's literally in a relationship with someone that looks like a Lord of the Rings character. So,
which Lord of the Rings character do I look like?
Are they doing food delivery?
Sort of like the grumpy farmer, like when Gandalf comes into the Bilbo village and is like, "Yo,
9 hours of like
stop with the fireworks."
9 hours they're just trying to find like the ring or whatever, and then they kind of that's about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean,
Matt, just stop talking because you're actually gonna drive people to unsubscribe. It's actually, I just found out that they're still doing food takeout orders, which is great news for me because I need to eat. We've been making a lot of comparisons to the Dallas Fuel, right? Within this Gladiators discussion.
Smooth transition
Shut the
here.
fuck up! I was gonna have the smoothest transition, and you fuckers, dude. What are you talking about? Transformers? Like, who gives a flying fuck, bro? Oh my god. Anyway,
if you go back in the video and you were watching, Bren like hid the phone behind his forearm to look at the script, so it didn't seem like he looked at the script. He was like hiding it.
Now he's using Plat
here, John. It's here. It's been here the whole time behind the cup. The people know I've got a phone with my script on. Get me out of here. Dallas Fuel. Are they still a top team? Are they a top team? Have they ever been a top team?
Oh my god!
I don't want to talk anymore.
Well, this entire topic was triggered by Super, right?
Yeah.
Because he made a wild claim on his stream. I mean, this really is a wild claim. Have you got the clip of it?
Yeah.
Can we watch the clip with audio?
We do have a clip. I don't know if we have audio, but Kurt's pulling it up. But anyway, I mean, Super basically just claimed that Dallas were the second best team in North America.
No, he said top three. He said top three.
Top three? Okay, that makes...
No, he said... but that's the thing. He said top three in the world, didn't he?
Yeah, I know.
No,
I think he said North America.
Oh, did he say North America?
I think so.
Yeah, we don't have audio. I don't know. Well, listen, we can just put words in his mouth.
Better than either Philly or
Florida.
Or Florida. And since... I mean, they were predicting... Super was predicting getting Philadelphia in the final. So presumably he believes that Philadelphia are the second best team, right?
What do you have to say in your PR statement from the Florida Man?
I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to be real with you. I don't think Super put any thought into this statement. I think he's just trying to bait for Twitch.
Well, I didn't put any thought into my void statement, and look how that turned out, is it? Are we just going to ignore takes now? Can you just put out takes on a whim?
Yeah, I mean, realistically...
Look, how did that turn out for me, huh? I got fucking retweets still from that freaking void opinion, and then people come in like peasants, like, oh, we wait for Super's opinion to really understand what's going on. Like, no, you can't just come up with takes and then ignore them because you didn't put any thought into them. My void take was dumb. I didn't put any thought to it. I regret it, but it's out there, and I can't do anything about it. It's on the internet.
Well, you shouldn't have made it in the first place, and if it was dumb.
I'm gonna be real with you guys. Fool. I think Super was smoking Skittles when he made this statement because I don't know where he's pulling this info from. Scrims maybe, but here's the thing: what is he basing this off of? Like the Dallas Fuel we've seen seems to be dragged by the sheer will of fucking Doha and Decay. Like they're just being dragged by them.
I will say, I think so. It probably will sound a little bit weird. I feel like Gamsu and Note have overperformed in terms of my expectations for them this season, if that makes any sense. Like, I always thought Note is just kind of like somebody who can only play D.Va, like that's it.
Yes.
Like we've seen him play other heroes at a higher level. I didn't really have a ton of confidence in Gamsu coming in. I love the guy, one of the sweetest guys on the planet, but I didn't have a ton of confidence with him coming into the year. And he's played quite well. Looks like he's had a resurgence playing with Note, where I feel like we do talk about their damage dealers a lot, and it's definitely deserved. They're incredible. But I feel like the tanks have really stepped up this season, where there were so many questions about them coming into it.
Yes, I think Note's Sigma has been significantly better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So that's...
Am I the only one who
that's pretty good.
Didn't have doubts about the tank line of Dallas?
What, you didn't have any doubts? Like, where did you expect them to place then?
What?
Like, where did you expect? Sorry, where did you think the tank line would stack up compared to everybody else?
I mean, bro, I don't know. I don't have a mental list in my head of the tank line and where they stack up.
Don't you have some sense of like where
I thought they would be better than
else?
average because of their pre-existing synergy, the fact that they play together, they know how they work together. I actually Note impressed me quite a lot because he was flexing a little bit even before Gamsu came into this lineup. So
I thought they were washed, bro.
No way, bro. I thought they were. I always thought they were going to be above average. I thought this was a real great pickup for Dallas.
Was there anybody out there?
But Notes, I was a bit unsure about.
Yeah,
you guys are for real.
I think. I mean, if you listed all the tank duos going into the league at the start of the season, again, haven't put any thought into this, so don't drag me through fucking Twitter again.
Dragged.
But I probably would have ranked them like
through the comments. If you do it through the comments, it'll push the video higher.
Dude, I got my first positive Reddit post in ages today, so I'm just over the moon. So
it doesn't count when it's
that's why I'm drinking a bottle of wine. I'm just celebrating. So that's
it doesn't count if it's
why
am I saying this? I'm just feeding the trolls of Reddit now. Why am I saying this? This is
now you gotta finish your fucking statement.
I probably would have said that Dallas Fuel had a top 10 tank line going into the season.
Really?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, I think that's a mega hot take, dude. I think that's actually
the league.
Yeah, I think that's a mega hot take.
Okay.
I went and I ranked
wait. Let me put thought into it.
People would ask this. And
let me put thought into it.
And so I deliberately did it. And there's a lot of decent tank lines in the league. There's some poopy ones.
Okay, I'm bringing up Notepad.
At the beginning of the league, where I thought that Note was going to be pretty bad at D.Va, I thought Gamsu Note was probably about the 5th worst, somewhere around that. And okay, that puts them top 15. So there is a bit of a difference between top 10 and top 15, but it's not as bad as it
you would have had them definitely above Boston.
Yeah, above Boston, above Washington.
The Titans not at the beginning of the season.
I would have had them above Houston.
Houston.
I would have had them above London. I would have had them above Chengdu.
Yeah.
I think top 10 is actually not a hot statement.
I think top 10's very hot.
No, you could have rated them higher than the Valiant before the season.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I think the Valiant's a hot one. But you absolutely wouldn't rate them higher than Philadelphia, Shanghai, Shock, New York, even Florida, right? With Gargoyle and Fate. There's no way you rate them higher than Gargoyle and Fate.
Maybe because Fate wasn't looking too good, bro.
No way,
you
dude.
can make an argument for it.
I mean, my boy Gargoyle.
Possibly you could make an argument for it, but I don't
you could
think
100% make an argument for that.
Oh, then the Seoul, Paris, Atlanta, all of these teams have better ones.
You have recency bias, my friend.
No. I'm saying I deliberately did this at the beginning of the season, and I put them bottom 5 because I'm saying that I was wrong to put them that low. But the reason that I did put them that low is because Note, I thought, was a D.Va one trick. That was essentially the crux of it. And he's not. His Sigma has looked pretty damn good.
Okay, so going into the season, I've made a notepad document. So instead of no thought into it, I've given 20 seconds of thought into it. And with those 20 seconds, I've managed to list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams going into the season that I think Dallas had a better tank line than. I'm not going to list them because people are going to maul, but let's say top 12.
List
top 12. Yeah, I could see them being 12th place. Yeah.
Going into the season, not now. Not after what we've seen. So Valiant is behind there. So
I rated them underneath that, but I had them in roughly the same kind of ballpark. Anyway, I think we're getting off the topic here a little bit. Anyway, because
this is fun. People are loving it. Dude, the comments on YouTube are popping off, skyrocketing. It's Joe Rogan levels.
Even if Gamsu have overperformed where we thought they were going to be, they're not the reason that Dallas could be a top team. The reason that Dallas could be a top team is because Decay's going to carry these motherfuckers unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
And Doha has put up great performances as well.
He would deserve. There's a strong argument. If they make the playoffs and do considerably well the rest of the season, for him to get some type of MVP love, like look at the tank line, and then think about like where we had like a support line of like Crimzo and Closer at the beginning of the year. Like for that team to become a playoff team, I think it's just credit obviously to go all around. I think with the coaches, I think people overperforming where we thought, but I think Decay is really just kind of pumped off.
Unbelievable. Like, and what's crazy is the consistency with which he's able to deliver carry performances. Most people can do it every now and then. They step up and they have a big game and you're like, holy shit. Decay's done it like 4 or 5 times so far this season, and they haven't even played like that many matches. It seems like roughly 1 every 3 games, Decay's just going to win you the entire game by himself, and that is a bonkers statement.
Do you think this is fueled by rage?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we're in an effect kind of situation.
Is this an effect level performance? Because I was going to say, Dallas seems to have this effect on players where they're just fueled by sheer rage from their surroundings, that they just outperform everything. I always think back to that time where I stared effect down in the eyes and predicted the Shanghai Dragons.
It's actually pretty good motivation. Like, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I don't think that Dallas is in a desperate situation at the moment. I think their players are starting to believe, and I think that Decay's been empowered.
Is Dallas a top team? Yes or no?
I think I have more confidence in them to overtake some of those teams than I did at like the Gladiators. I think that they've played quite well where they could overtake a Valiant, they could overtake a Atlanta Reign, even in that capacity. And I think this is a team and organization that's motivated to do it because they've been such shit the first 2 seasons.
Okay, here's my definitive answer. Yes. It depends what you quantify as a top team, but I think that I would give Dallas a reasonable chance of winning on a given week, if the circumstances were right, against some of the top teams that you would consider top teams in the league, like Florida, Shock, Paris.
Thank you.
Atlanta to a degree, if you still want to consider Atlanta a top team. Is one thing that we haven't really dove into, but yeah, I say yes. Anyone else agree?
But does that just mean that they have upset potential if you can see them win against top teams in specific weeks, or do you also have faith in them being able to win those matches they're supposed to win as well?
I would say that I would have utmost faith in that they are consistently winning against some worse teams than them. For example, if there was a match next week that was Dallas versus a mosquito, got it.
Nice.
Good job.
If there was a match next week with Dallas and, for example, I don't know, Washington, I would say with 90% certainty that maybe even higher than that Dallas would win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I think it comes down to like whether or not you believe that they are better than a team like the LA Valiant, for example. Because I think that the Valiant and them are honestly fairly similar, but in a weird way. Like they both have to lean into comfort picks for their DPS players, and their DPS players are the ones that are going to, broadly speaking, carry them. They've had over performances from their tank and support line compared to what we were expecting. And they like to play upset, and they can play upset to these top teams. But I don't really know who I think has. I think Dallas have a better chance of being. Do I actually? I don't even know whether I really believe that statement.
I think Dallas have a better chance of making a playoff opportunity happen than Valiant do.
Yes, I think I agree with you.
I would agree with that as well.
But I think I I think Valiant are going to be the more consistent team because of how their coaching and
I definitely agree.
Strategy works. I think it's very close, but I think so.
I'm not gonna say I disagree with you, but I'd like to expand on these ideas because I feel like sometimes Valiant is the inconsistent ones because they can't play Shaxx and KSP to their strengths sometime.
Yeah.
Where Dallas Fuel consistently have showcased that they can play multiple compositions, not necessarily to the best level, but they actually have that consistency in terms of strategy, and usually Doha and Decay pops off in either of those compositions, whereas Valiant are sort of like
I think we
miss, you know.
I think we like this team to make a run like that in the playoff or something like that, because with these types of brackets where you just need to win one game to get on, and we see Decay pop off and just take over games all the time, you have a reasonable chance if he plays well. Like, yeah, that's why I think this team is in the position they are, is because he's having these explosive performances so frequently that they're able to outperform other top teams.
Yeah, at the moment it's kind of Dallas, in my opinion, it's Dallas, Valiant, and Gladiators who are competing for this position of the next team to explode into the top. I think the Atlanta Reign are on the wrong side of it. They're starting to trend downwards, and unless they really prove that they can turn things around, I think they're on the way out as these guys start to come in. Paris as well, they almost look like they're on the way out as well, except that they have Sparkle coming in, and that's huge for them, or could be huge for them. So I think that it really comes down to the Valiant, the Gladiators, and Dallas Fuel to see if they can make a push for beating these top teams. Florida have already ascended. Shock and Philadelphia are at the top. Paris and Atlanta look a bit shaky, and these teams are starting to glow up. So, out of the three of them, I think I have most faith in Dallas. But I still don't think that makes them a top 3 team.
But they're getting there.
Yeah,
they're on the right track.
Jonathan, what do you think?
If I had to pick one of those 3 teams to make it the furthest in a playoff scenario, just hypothetically, obviously it comes down to like hero pools, like all of these variables. Who cares? Probably I would pick the Dallas Fuel between Dallas, Atlanta, and Valiant. I think so. I think that Atlanta
and Gladiators?
On paper, given the recent performances by Gladiators, probably. But I'm not going to dismiss the potential of those teams because I think on paper Atlanta still has a fantastic roster. I just don't know like what's happening right now. Whereas Dallas have shown, recency bias, of course, that Dallas have shown that they have the capabilities, and you gotta, to some extent, you have to sort of give props to the Dallas Fuel, in my opinion, because when Decay came into the league, I think people were speculating about like his salary or whatever, and like making like nicknames and etc. But like, we knew that he was an incredible talent with insane potential to make a big impact in this league, and I think last year sort of like put a dent in his reputation because he honestly like didn't see the most success on that Gladiators team. Like he had some moments where like he really shined, and the Gladiators as a team like were good last year, but I think that he just really unlocked the next level on Dallas Fuel this year. And in some regards, you gotta give credit to the Dallas Fuel staff management for seeing that potential and like being like capitalizing on the opportunity to get him to that team. So
really you want to give them credit for signing like one of the hottest commodities in the off season? Because he was still super hot this off season. I know that a lot of teams wanted him.
Oh, he was?
They all have teams.
Yeah. So apparently you two are like messing around in Discord and WhatsApp while I'm over here actually playing the game. So
talking to GMs, and there was a lot of people still trying to get him.
So apparently people were still hot about Decay, but I feel like it was a bit of like a Carpe scenario where Carpe didn't have the best season last year, and I think a lot of people suffered in that regard and didn't have the most. They like their name didn't come up as much because we weren't in a DPS dominated meta.
The Carpe Decay comparison is huge, actually. I think that it's very valid.
Well, frick. I just wanted to say that I think Decay had tons of potential, and he's finally like, we don't need to attach a narrative to it because we knew he had potential. and now he's like.
I would say season 1 probably didn't hurt Decay on the back end as much as you probably anticipate. Like I would say, like in terms of like free agent damage dealers, like he was definitely one of the more highly sought after options, like within the top 3 to 4.
That just makes the head-to-head topic of like OG versus Decay so much more interesting, because like how high do you really value OG?
So
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
we
isn't
think
it? It's kind of crazy.
it's a maybe.
What is Dallas a top team?
Is Dallas a top team? It's a maybe.
I think by the end of the season, we very well could be talking about them as a top team.
This is something we never discussed in this topic, though. But why does Super think they're a top team? Because they've been popping off in scrims. It's got to be. There's no other reason why he would go on his stream and say
he's been smoking the skills.
He could be smoking some hot shit, but that seems less likely. I mean, they must be just going ham in scrims, right? And that's probably gonna be just Decay going fucking buck wild. Decay and Doha.
So it's a
just changes your whole approach when you're playing against a guy like
maybe.
that.
I think yes.
You think yes? You think it is a top 3 team? You think they're better than the Mayhem?
I didn't say top 3, pal.
I'm going in water.
I said top team.
Okay, all right. I just want to be clear. I want to be clear that we're still calling out Super here. That was a bonkers statement to make. Basically,
you don't know.
Top 3
I
is.
do know they
top
haven't
3
performed
is
in matches.
Crazy.
If you see, but he obviously has seen stuff in scrims that
Bro,
is.
I mean, I'm sure he's seen stuff. He's probably hallucinating.
Scrim swims.
Yeah, I mean, scrims are all well and good, right? But when it comes down to it, Dallas still have to perform in matches, and they still aren't quite there yet.
I'm moving us along to the next topic of conversation. We've talked we've talked about the best. Now let's talk about the rest. The Vancouver Titans.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh my goodness. I don't know who put this topic of conversation in our little runner show, but is there any hope, playoff hope, for the Vancouver Titans?
No.
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm with Johnny here. I'm with a fat no.
Actually, well, I didn't listen. What were we talking about?
Is there any playoff hope for the Vancouver Titans?
So here's, so I put down this topic because I thought it was interesting.
I was wondering who it was.
And you immediately shut it down with a no as soon as you sat down.
I was getting water. I was away. Whatever. So I actually put this down because it's interesting. If you look at the standings, Kurt, if you could please bring those back again, I'd really appreciate that, Kurt. Thank you so much. You're the greatest.
Standings, please.
But if you look at their matches, like considering that they didn't play so many matches early on in the season, like a lot of their matches are actually like staggered towards the end of the season, which actually, like hypothetically, means that if they could improve now with the Shockwave signing, I mean, I'm not saying they're making the playoffs, but like it's not dead. Like they looked a lot better with Shockwave.
I think they could become. I think they could become better than some of the bottom teams.
I don't think.
I think so too.
I don't think so.
Because I mean, you have to be able to say who they're going to be better.
I think they could become better than like Boston. I think
Boston's been good recently.
No,
Boston's actually been good recently, and they look
how is this even a hot take?
Toronto because Kyrie popped off.
Could they be better than the? Could they be better than the Justice?
No, they've just picked up Stitch.
Yes, but Justice still didn't look good.
I don't care. You give that team more time, I think they're going to look better than Titans. Maybe I'm being too harsh on the Titans here, but I cannot see this team doing well.
They're 4 matches away from 500, and they'll slip further. They're most definitely slip further away from 0.500, but there's a window of opportunity.
Mate, I just can't see it happening. I'll be honest. I want to put some money on the line.
I mean, Boston currently have 2 wins.
For what? What's the bet?
Titans have 2 wins, but none of them will go with this
I don't
roster.
think this team will go. I don't think this team will go 500
from here.
Oh,
yeah.
No, definitely
no
not.
way in hell.
Definitely not.
And I don't think this team will go.
You don't need to go 500 to make playoffs. The playoffs are probably going to be expanding. The Overwatch League will probably announce something.
I don't think they're going to go 300.
Right.
From
so that's
here
less
or
than
overall?
a third.
See, this is pretty pointless because there's a reason you have different odds when it comes to betting. Because some statements are like more.
Bro, I'm just saying. I was actually not gonna lie to you, Johnny. I was just saying numbers. I actually don't know what going 300 means. But I don't think this team is going to be doing very well because I don't work with those betting systems, those odds numbers. They don't work in my brain. I work with decimals, not decimals, sorry, fractions.
Okay.
But like, if you gave me 5-1 odds, No, that's not enough. Maybe like 10-1 odds.
Bro, I think this team is
a
I think this team's a 50-1 that they make playoffs.
Well, you can't say that when you don't know
what the playoff format is. Yeah.
Yeah, I could get absolutely ruined by John Spector when he announces that it's open to God knows how many teams. But I think if we're thinking in a traditional format that the playoffs kind of excludes the bottom half of the team of this section of the.
Normally it would be 12. So I mean, if you
I
want to
just
use
can't
top 12.
see them being a top 12 team by the end of the season. Let's assume that is the case.
Can we just make this fun hypothetical experiment then? Okay.
Sure.
If Vancouver were to go 500, okay, win as many games as they lost games. Currently, they are 4 wins behind. So they're 2-4. No, they're 2-6.
2-6.
They're 2-6. In order for them to go 50-50, how many times would you have your money returned? Like, what would your odds be for you to be willing to take a stab at them? Would it be 50-1, 25-1, 10-1, 15-1? Because honest to God, if it was like 15-1 or 10-1, I could throw like a small sum of money just like for the sake of it.
I would have to. Here's what I would do if I was planning to bet on the Vancouver Titans. If for some reason a guy had a gun to my head and said, "You must bet on the Vancouver Titans,"
small sum, shit bet,
okay,
you know,
small sum of money. I would first take out a loan of a large amount of money, and I would fly these motherfuckers to a team house, and I would make sure that they were playing on good ping, and then I would hire them a good coaching staff and get them to actually play with this team, and then I think it's possible that they might be able to go. Oh, that's still hard to see them going 500 for the rest of the season. But only if they're playing with even ping and a good infrastructure around them can I see that even being a possibility. I would have to take out a loan in order to make good on my bet.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good.
They should pick up some of the ex-Vancouver Titans players.
Oh. It's an interesting point you made there, Bren. Seems like a lot of them are signed. They can get someone too.
Some good free agents there, you know.
So I think, is there any playoff hope? I think the answer is no.
Well, that's the thing, though. It could be playoff hope.
That's the thing, though. Here it goes.
But might be a lot of teams invited to playoffs because the online structure has been really weird, right? And so they're probably going to open it up a little bit, or maybe a lot of it. You know, it could be it could be all teams in playoffs. Who knows?
Like if there's a play-in tournament for like the bad teams, they could make a run in that and get in. Like we saw them almost beat Toronto. Like, give them some more time.
I do believe that they need to be brought to a central location. I think that for the Vancouver Titans, I don't want to say once COVID settles down, but as COVID starts to settle down, as places are starting to be reopened, like a lot of the Korean players have traveled back to Korea in this break as well. So it's not like travel is something that should be absolutely avoided at the moment for the health of the players if you do it safely and you've got the right controls in place. Invest in this team. Get them into a position where they can represent your organization well. Don't just hang them out to dry and ignore the rest of the season and just give up on it. They've got a brand new GM who's already announced that they're looking towards 20. No, that was the Justice, wasn't it? I've forgotten. Yeah. There's so many teams that have given up on this year already. I couldn't keep them straight in my head. But yeah, I think the Titans should bring them to a central location because they have an outside chance.
Cool.
So I think we all think about on the Titans.
I'm sorry.
God bless them, poor lads.
Well, I think we're done talking about the Titans.
Okay.
Well,
let's. You know what?
This is where you transition us to the next topic.
I know what the
Bren.
next topic was, but I was trying to think of some sort of transition, but I got nothing. So let's talk about Burnout an Hour.
So what'd you do? Just stare at the fucking? Just stare at us
like we're
crazy?
I was thinking of a way to transition it.
Oh yeah, I wanted to bring up this topic actually because what we're seeing in CS right now, I don't know whether any of you are particularly familiar with CS. I've been spending a lot of my time just diving into Valorant, and so I've been looking into some of the histories of the players and stuff, and I've been reading up a lot of the CS stuff as well. And they're having a lot of retirements at the moment as well, and players feeling burnt out, and the feeling in
you're a robot.
You're a robot.
Wait,
Discord?
Everyone's a robot.
Yeah, it's Discord.
Oh God, it's Discord.
No.
No.
Oh no. Oh no. Hello? Is it just us?
Mm-mm.
This is hilarious. Oh my god.
Did one of them just start?
I don't think it's.
What is? Oh, we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Are we back?
What happened there?
It was Matt.
Yeah.
Oh my.
No,
it wasn't.
you. It wasn't you.
I was like, what?
That's weird.
Oh my god. I started crying.
Dude, as soon as Josh said the V word, dude, the podcast ended.
Yeah.
Bro, John
All right.
Spector's outside our house
Blizzard
right now.
knew, dude.
He's cutting the cables.
What do we want to just cut that out and start the segment again?
No,
No,
that
we're
was
just
hilarious.
continuing. So you were
That was
saying about the
hilarious.
CS players. You were saying how
well,
you were
you don't
diving
know.
into CS and there's been a lot of retirements in CS lately.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of retirements in the CS scene. I mean, a lot of tier 2's been eaten up by people moving over to Valorant because it's the new hot, shiny commodity. But a lot of the tier 1, not a lot of the tier 1 players, but a couple of the tier 1 players are using this opportunity to retire as well. And within the scene, there's been quite a bit of discussion about like why now? You know, like why when the players have the most free time they've ever had, are people retiring? You know, they're at home, they're safe to be able to, or not
Yeah.
safe. They're free to be able to do their own shit, play on their own time. They're comfortable. They're in their own homes. They're not traveling all over the place like CS players normally do. And yet there's been a spate of retirements, which is unusual. It's slightly more usual in OWL. We have a pretty high player turnover, but it's been much higher this year during
Yes.
the lockdown.
Well, I think with CS specifically, right? And I think probably OWL a little bit to do with it as well, is, you know, CS, knowing some of the commentators over there, like they travel so much. I think it was like somebody like Moses, I think maybe even tweeted about it, that he was on the road like 250 days or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you take that, which is obviously stressful for even a commentator as a person, throw in the pro player aspect of it, and it becomes a little absurd. And I also think with how, you know, a game like Valorant's coming out, streaming is becoming ever more popular and whatnot, where people are seeing viewership they haven't seen ever. There's other avenues to do other than being a pro player now. So I think when you have the time now to sit at home and you're not out on the road and you're enjoying your life and you're enjoying, you know, the surroundings of your house and your apartment, wherever, you don't have that same motivation to go to be like, do I really want to go back out there once, you know, this has started to calm down and start to travel and play at these events and whatnot? Like, you just don't want it as much anymore in that regard.
I think you're going to say the same thing, Sideshow, as I'm going to say here. But I think that the main Melee introduced like the sort of stages playoff kind of thing, which I really think helps aid motivation for players as well, because those are like the fun tournaments you kind of like to participate in, and like that's where the real fun competition is at. I think it sometimes like the league system we have like doesn't help that excitement about participating in the matches, etc., because you don't have the elimination factor as much, and you also don't have the same kind of goal when you're practicing. So when you ask the question, I thought back to my pro playing days and like how it was different. The fact was that I always had the next tournament to look forward to, and then you had like different phases. So you were like, okay, well, we're 16 to 12 weeks away from the next tournament, let's say. So we're going pretty light on the practice, right? And then as you get closer and closer to the tournament, you ramp up the practice so you hit your A game as the tournament is coming up. With a league system, you risk getting like the Groundhog Day syndrome, where it sort of feels like you're going day in and day out, and then you go to these home stands maybe, you know, hypothetically, right? And you're like, well, you know, there's nothing that really distincts the Washington homestand from the Houston homestand, and like at the end of the day, we're just going to play 1 or 2 matches, and then we're out of there, and we hope we get wins for our standings, etc. When I was practicing for tournaments, it was so much practice and emotional energy to that one weekend where we had that playoff, where we had Takeover 1, or we had the E-League playoffs, and like you put so much energy into that one specific tournament. So I think that practice and your mindset changes a lot depending on what format you're practicing for. And that's where I think like something like stage playoffs actually helped some teams in earlier seasons to have like a goal to strive towards and something to practice towards, because they wanted to like get high placings in those tournaments. Whereas it's harder for people to have the long-term vision and the big picture when it comes to league standings week after week, and you're not facing elimination as much because, you know, you could just go on a win streak at the end of the season, you know, you don't know. So, you know, when you just having that very strict elimination part in it all, I think makes a big difference for player motivation and mindset going into tournaments. And I honestly think that's might have been part of the reason why people like Hip maybe retired, or Gray, or, you know, I don't know, but
I think playing on the stage is also a big motivator for players. I think that that's like part of the drive, the adrenaline. Like the players might say, "Oh, really? I actually didn't know that."
Yeah, Shada said a big part of it was the fact that, you know, he could look forward to showing off his personality a little bit on the stage, you know, being that character in person and helping his team along, and that, you know, it gets detracted when you're playing online.
Yeah, and without the stage, without the big games, without that kind of stuff, you only have the crappy part of being a pro player, which is just being stuck at home and doing your own stuff. You don't have the travel though, and the travel could have burnt people out just as much.
Yeah,
we don't know that because we never really.
I think the travel for CS absolutely did, because think about it, like they have small breaks in their year CS, right? I believe like the CS Pro Player Association kind of like works with the tournament organizers and blocks out a time of the year where they're not allowed to do anything. So they do have some like fixed time off. But imagine that kind of going around on that circuit for 3-4 years in a row. Like,
but then why retire when you take a break? Like, why choose this time to retire?
Because you start to find out that there's other things in life that you can do and you can enjoy.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that might be valid.
I'm sure some of you guys, from being home and whatnot, like I've learned that there was stuff that like I was going out and doing and buying, and how I was spending money that I probably don't need to do anymore. You know, I don't have to go get 5 coffees a day. I can probably make a coffee at home. Like you also find other things to enjoy, whether it be games, whether it be other hobbies as well. And I think there's a point where you start to kind of look down the barrel of like going back to where you were, and then there's a decision like, do I want to go back to that, or do I want to start new? Where now is a time when you could start new.
Yeah. The other part of this when it comes to Overwatch as well, though I'm sure this isn't the case for CS, in Overwatch, the hero pools stuff, the fact that we are currently playing with hero pools, has apparently added significant amounts of time to people's scrim schedules.
Oh yeah.
Whereas people previously were starting to step off the pedal with just going scrim. Like that was kind of the case in year one from a lot of the teams. And then they eased off it a little bit because they realized that short-term effective practice and VOD review was more important. And then I think with hero pools, it was like, well, shit, we can't VOD review if we don't have the stuff to actually VOD review. And we need to try out so many different comps that we actually need to scrim that much. So I Super tweeted about it a while back. It was May 12th. He said, all I can say about the hero pool discussion is it definitely added more scrim and practice time to ours and other teams' schedule. So he said, I'm not sure why people seem to think that people are practicing the same amount. They're definitely practicing more. So that's also definitely got to contribute to burnout, because esports is already in a position where people practice a silly amount, like a mentally unsustainable amount.
In comparison to traditional sports.
Yeah, because in traditional sports, your body just would physically shut down, wouldn't it? But in esports, because people don't have a good understanding of how much you can mentally take, they just drill over and over and over.
You know as well when you're done, like as a pro, like you clearly knew. I mean, even like playing like sports in high school, where like like when you have like a practice or somewhere to go and you're just like, oh fuck that, I just want to go hang out with my friends, or I want to go do something else, you know you're done. And I can imagine a lot of these players sitting at home and going to the computer and having to play again and practice. There's probably a point where some of them were like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we've hit.
Did you ever have that moment, Johnny? Because I know that you were kind of struggling between wanting to go.
Johnny would still play now if he could.
No, so someone actually asked me this on stream yesterday, so it's quite ironic. But you know, when I weighed being up against an analyst, I made a pros and cons list in Monty's house. He invited me to stay at his house, and I was very torn about it because I had just been kicked off Misfits and I needed a new team, and so I just made a pros and cons list, and I just decided that like, hey, I probably still want to play, but realistically, the stable career of being an on-camera analyst is probably better long-term for my career. So I never had that moment. I just tried to make like a career decision at that point where I was like, hey, do you want the opportunity to be an Overwatch League analyst and like build that career? Or do you want to risk not getting a team, not getting picked up, or like having to play in tier 2 at the time and like unsponsored and stuff? And I just said like, best choice is probably to just be an analyst. And to also, shit, I had 2 points. I wanted to say to your thing as well, Sideshow, about more practice time. I think part of the hero pools problem with adding more practice is that you're adding more practice, which to the player feels meaningless.
Yes.
Because if you add 2 days of practice on the front end, where you're just experimenting, and you're like, well, we're just trying shit out. Doesn't really matter, because we'll find out on Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even Friday, what composition we're running.
Wait,
that feels like shit, because you're just like, what are we doing this for? You know?
Yeah,
you're
forced to go. Well, you're forced to go sit there and just kind of throw shit at the wall for 2 days, and then like, you know, some of the comps you're going to run and do are a waste of time, and you know you're going to lose because you're just trying shit out. Yeah. And then it's a mad rush at the end once you figure it out to get it right. So there's just a lot of time. There's a large amount of time invested where I mean, you can't just like wait till the end of the week and decide like, oh, see what everybody else is running and do it. Like, you kind of have to put the exploratory time in. But it's still like it has to be kind of tiring to do that week on, week out.
Yeah.
I will say.
Go on.
Okay, we all have points now. I have one final point, Bren, and then you can take over this segment.
I'm not closing it out. I've got a point to add.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thinking back over the course of what this year could have been, I think we probably would have seen more retirements if homestands would have happened. Yes.
Because of the traveling?
Because of the traveling. Genuinely.
But I think the players, I think what kind of drives them to get through some of that tough practice is the playing in front of crowds, is the fan interaction. Like, I think our players really love that.
For some players, yeah. But I think the travel would have taken its toll eventually. Because think about it. Think of the amount of matches that we've had. Every single week, you would have been traveling. Every single week.
Well, no, the players wouldn't be. The players had set schedules where they had like weeks off and stuff like that. They
across
don't
the board, almost every other week or almost every week, you would be traveling, and you would have been spending time on planes. Traveling sucks. Like, that's just a fact. It really does blow. And we've seen people like you were saying earlier, Matt. Like, speaking to the CS commentators, when they spend 200 days on the road, like it just makes them want to quit.
Right, but the players weren't ever going to be spending 200 days on the road. They had a plan that was like spending, what was it, like 2 weeks in Asia, roaming around, and then they'd have like a couple of weeks off, and then they'd do 2 weeks elsewhere. I think personally, and this isn't really based on that much, honestly, not even my own personal experience, but just a theory. I think that people are more suited to periods of high stress and low stress than constant middle stress. Like, if you have a period of like a week where you know that week's going to be shit and you know you're going to be traveling around, but you've got to play in front of everything, but you have that period of time off afterwards to kind of cool down again. I feel like that's more doable for people than constant grinding all the time of just being at your home and playing, because while you're traveling you can't be scrimming as well. You can't just be playing constantly. So the travel schedule, I think, mixed things up enough that, okay, this is just a blind hypothetical, but I think that it would have been the better of the two options, and we won't know that, but I suspect it because it's not similar to like the CS casters at all.
Right.
You don't think so?
I mean, well, I don't think we'll really know, right, until we get like a full kind of run at it.
How is it not comparable?
Because you're not spending 200 days on the road. Like
as a player.
As a player, no.
But you are spending a significant amount of your time in an unknown location and a new location almost every week. You never really have a home.
The players weren't. The players were like, they had 2 weeks off and then 4 weeks on the road and then like something like that, right? Like the Gladiators players that we talked to in Dallas when the homestands were still going on, they had a 4-week break and then they were going to Asia and they were going to spend like 3 weeks in Asia and then they were back to the US, where you know that, okay, those 3 weeks are going to be high stress.
But I think it would have been the same. Like I think even the traveling in the US, like when you're going up and down the coast and you finish a game on a Sunday and you go back to, let's say, New York on Monday, and you have to start right away on hero pools and then go to Toronto, let's say on Thursday, like that is a nonstop.
And that's arguably that's harder than commentator's
you do have
schedule.
Weeks off though. The original schedule did have
but
weeks off, multiple weeks at a time, and for some of the teams that were going to Asia, like 5 weeks off.
Yeah, but the difference between having weeks off in a CS and having weeks off in Overwatch is CS stays pretty much the same game all year round. I mean, there's some kind of like adjustments with like economy and like slightly like meta, but it's not like us where we kind of spin the wheel to do hero every week. There's tons of balance adjustments. It's not like a week off in CS you could take it light.
I think it's the opposite.
You can't.
I think it's if you have a full week off in Overwatch, you know that there's not going to be that hero pool. So you just take that whole week off. It's done. It's gone. Don't do anything with it. Just chill out. If you have a week off in CS, you at least still have to keep somewhat warm to going into the next week because it's still relevant.
In Overwatch, practicing through the breaks at Overwatch, like they're not.
If they're literally not playing that week, I think they're taking it pretty light. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I don't think so.
Blocks,
I think you.
Why on earth would they? Why would they still play their full scrim time if they're not playing?
Maybe
that
not the full scrim time, but they'd still play. They wouldn't take it easy.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they want to keep up on like what's happening,
like week to week
on
the meta. Like, if this.
So you're saying that
particular...
when all of those teams, like the Titans, the Gladiators, Dallas, when they had that massive break between week 1 and like week 10, you're telling me they were scrimming every week? I don't believe you. I don't believe that's the case.
Was that actually planned out to be like that way?
Yes, that was planned out to be that way, and then they were going to Asia.
I would say max in my playing days, max I took was a week off. I'd say I took like a week off, like after tournaments, or maybe like a week or 2 off after tournaments. But like you couldn't afford more than that. But we would take a week off because like every team would take a week off. You're 12 teams, 16 teams that like take over, and you all get back home from traveling to Germany. You're like, we'll take 5 to 8 days off.
What changes
and then you have
would you make?
But the thing is, then you have like 2 months until like the next tournament or whatever.
What changes would you make
it's different
to help with player burnout?
I think this is just a clusterfuck of too many variables because you have homestands with varying schedules and hero pools. So what I didn't get to add to the conversation was that I think that, humans in general are creatures of habit. And so actually just having to take like, we have 2 weeks off and now we're on the road for 5 weeks and now we got 1 week off and now we have 1 week playing. Like it's hard to like establish a schedule, especially when you're making it from like 0 to 100, because these players just hung out at like the Blizzard Arena for like 2 years. And now you're like, well, time to travel all over the world. And like it's not the same approach that I had when I started playing professionally, because I knew that traveling was involved. And like, maybe you could have had the foresight to be like, well, it's the Overwatch League. We're going to travel all over the world and we're going to go to Asia. But like, it doesn't happen over time. And so I think that not being able to establish that kind of travel habit and like prepare yourself mentally for that is pretty difficult for a player. But most importantly of all, I think that hero pools is like the last straw that like breaks the camel's back. with all the travel and homestands going on already, because there's just too much going on.
Here's what I would do. I would
sorry.
To reduce burnout in the league. I like this tournament structure that we've got going on with these monthly tournaments. I like the concept of homestands. I think you want to keep the concept of a homestand because people like playing in front of their home crowd. What I would do is I would limit the amount of traveling that hopefully would be necessary. So you're sort of, I'd have tournaments being played, and the teams would be playing tournaments in this kind of bubble, where you'd have teams that go to a specific region, and maybe you play games in this particular region, so they wouldn't have to travel as much. They'd be playing from, like, I don't know, Florida to Washington, and maybe Houston. I don't even know if that's... No, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta would be closer, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So you have like this triangle of places that are close by, this little pocket of games that get played in a tournament structure. So the travel is reduced from that. You have the players looking forward to a tournament. They also look forward to playing on stage. And then after the tournaments are said and done, you take a week break and you don't tell them what the hero pools are, so they don't have anything to practice for. And then you rinse and repeat until you end up with the playoffs at the end.
I would rather see a mix of what you just said, and then also have a mix of online play in there.
Online play?
I think yes, and I say that because that allows the players to stay in their location for an extended period of time. There's not a ton of travel involved. Then I also think because I think what you need is to constantly mix it up, because I think players get excited about big tentpole events, whether it's a tournament, whether it's a homestand, whether it's BlizzCon. Any type of like big event you can get excited around, where you're going to have a tournament, and let's say you want to do groups leading into it. Maybe you do those online during the week, and then you do the tournament like live at a LAN place or something like that, right? Like in the LAN setting, and then maybe there's some kind of tournament payoff at the end of all of those kind of groups where. I tweeted about a format that kind of went a little bit in a combination of what we've done in the past and what I think we can do is every team would go to the same amount of events, let's call them. Every team would play the same amount of group stage matches to seed themselves for these mini playoffs, mini brackets, whatever you wanted to call them. You can use then the group play standings at the overall end of the season, because you'd have the same amount of games over all of them. But then each week or every other week, you still give the LAN events for teams to be able to go travel to and potentially win extra money.
So it's like the CDL, where they run tournaments every other week, but you actually have group games for the seeding of those tournaments that are played online.
So let's say, for argument's sake, you split the league into two, right? Maybe half of the league is playing the group stage matches for their bracket, which the actual live event is the next weekend. And when the one team is playing the online portion, the other group of teams is maybe in their live tournament version of it. You can flip those and you can move them around. So teams at worst case travel every other week. Yeah.
I will say that as a pro player, I don't actually find travel that bad. But I think that, I've really struggled with rotting on the bench recently. I haven't been played for a while. I haven't ever been played, actually. And that, I think, is a real killer. I had a good friend on the bench, Sire player. He's also
anyway,
gone back
how much
to
impact do you guys think that Architect will have for the Spark?
Wait.
Massive.
Wait. I haven't finished telling my anecdote.
I wasn't joking.
Then.
I wasn't joking. How much of an impact do we think that Architect will have for the Spark? Because we didn't get to see him play in the Asia tournament. A bit disappointing, personally, because Hangzhou got absolutely boomed in the first round by just a completely different team from what it seemed like. I'm being called by my Uber driver, who's dropping off my food. I'm not going anywhere. But, what do we think? Matt?
I think they have an opportunity to be a top 3 team, potentially the second best team in Asia. I actually think that it's that big of a pickup that I think Godsby has been really sick for this team, basically been playing alone at times. And this is a team that was really strong and successful last year. They just haven't. It's almost like this is a team that had higher potential than like the Gladiators do in North America, but the same issue. But they actually made a change where they've brought in another player. Where I think Architect, I mean, he got some run on the Shock, and we knew he was really good. But I think in combination with Godsby and Gushui, I think they could be one of the best teams in the region.
I think that I do think that Architect's going to be amazing. And I think that Architect and Godsby is a fantastic DPS duo. I've always been a bit shaky on Adora. I didn't think he was that good. I think this is a massive upgrade. But the issues that I have seen from the Hangzhou Spark recently have not really been because of Adora. It's been the weird compositions that they're playing and a failure to pick up on the meta very quickly. And that's also a trend, if you remember, that went back into last year as well. Despite this team being a top 4 team, they were always slow to pick up on the meta or slow to be able to adapt. They were amazing once they got...
Pretty fortunate there was only one meta.
Yeah, well, it wasn't for a while though, right? Like in stage 4 there wasn't,
triple
in the playoffs
DPS
there wasn't,
bullshit,
and then triple DPS in stage 3 as well. But they were very, very good at being able to just refine one meta though. They got better and better as the weeks went on. And I think that Hero Pulse is hurting them. And the compositions that they were running in the main melee, I mean, I wanted to slap somebody. Whoever's in charge over there at the Hangzhou Spark, you are lucky that you are not within reach of my hairy side, Sonny Jim, because you would be getting it right then. It wasn't good. It wasn't impressive. So if they continue to have those kind of effects, then Architect isn't even going to make a difference because he's going to end up playing Torbjorn or something in a dive meta.
Yeah, it's a difficult region. That's for sure. Oh, there it is. Bren, I want you to tell me what food you got, and I also want you to tell me how much of an impact you think Architect will make for the Spark.
Why?
Whilst eating the food.
Yeah, tell me what food
I gotta wash
you
my
get.
hands before I eat it.
True, but you can answer my question before you wash your hands.
I'll tell you once I
What
wash
is
my
that?
hands.
It looks like a burger. Is it a burger?
Yeah,
Burger with fries?
Yeah, is it the
Yeah, it looks like a chicken burger.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so I think Hangzhou had a lot of potential even going into the season. I think that we were rating them like above average because they definitely had the players available. I think that Asia overall is just like a wacky region right now where everyone could beat everyone to an extent, apart from Shanghai maybe, and now Seoul when they've proven that they can play Dive 2. I think the upper capabilities for Hangzhou is very high, but it's just like, can you consistently beat teams like Guangzhou? Can you beat teams like New York Excelsior? Or are you going to be the team that wrestles with Chengdu and London, you know? Like, there's a lot going on in that region. And I would like to say that Architect makes a big difference for this team and adds a lot that makes them be like that Guangzhou, New York beater. But I honestly, it's so hard to say that we're only speculating. But
I think it does.
It's a big pickup.
It gives them at least an argument.
It's a hot dog.
Oh, it's a hot dog. I thought it was a burger.
Chicken tender.
Oh, it's a chicken. It's a chicken tender in like a rolly bun thing. All right.
Some coleslaw and some pickles.
That looks nice. That looks nice.
Really good.
Spicy sauce, dude. This is the bomb.
This might be a hotter take than Bren's hot dog, but sorry, it's not a hot dog. It's a chicken fillet. You just told me that. this might be a hotter take than the sauce you got on there. Yeah, vodka actually. But do the Spark now have an argument for the best DPS line in Asia with Architect and Godsby? I think they've got an argument for
Profit and Fits.
Yeah, but dude, profit fits fled a lip, but I mean, Architect Godsby's on the same level, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think
it is hot. It is spicy.
Without we seen Profit play this year at times.
Happy Nero.
I mean, Happy is too limited with his hero pool.
If you want to talk about Profit, am I wrong in that it's mostly his Echo that hasn't been too impressive? Do you think?
Yeah,
other
everything else has
heroes?
been pretty good.
So like,
but Echo's huge.
It's a hot take. I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's spicy. That's for damn
Actually,
sure.
we haven't seen Architect Echo, right? So maybe I should leave that kind of hot take until we've actually seen him play that.
Well, now it's out there. Now it's out there. You got it.
Hey, I was asking.
You can make an argument that they have some like the highest potential out of those duos, right?
I don't know. Highest potential.
Probably
pretty. Sorry, Profit is pretty.
Bren is shaking his hand.
Is that too spicy for you, Bren?
Pretty hot.
Profit and Fitz, probably.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
It's pretty hot, man.
I'd say Godspeed's probably the best hit scan player in Asia, though.
Godspeed is the best hit scan player in Asia.
I don't think
Is that
so,
a
mate.
hot take?
That's a hot take,
so.
bro.
Yeah.
Godspeed's
You
good.
think that's a hot take?
Mm-hmm. Godspeed's good, but
Who do you think is better?
I think Lip might be better. The way Lip's been
Lip
playing.
is.
Lip's
but,
been an absolute beast. I think Fitz has been pretty good. What? Hold on. So here's my overtake, right? My overarching take with the Hangzhou Spark.
Overtake.
I remember looking at this roster when it came into the league. I had to write articles on it. I got pissed. Man got pissed because I was on holiday. And they were like, can you write these articles? The only reason, I don't know why they're asking me. I'm illiterate. I said to them, why are you asking me to write these articles? I've never wrote an article before. I don't know how to write. I got a B in GCSE English. Like, I barely passed it. Like, come on, what are you doing? And they were like, nah, write them anyway. And I was like, okay. And lo and behold, people were like, the comments online were like, well, it really feels like Bren hasn't put any effort into this. Motherfuckers, I don't know how to write articles. I ain't a journalist. If I was going to be a journalist, you'd see me writing for Over.gg. Do you see me writing for Over.gg? No. I'm a commentator. Okay?
All right. Brent, that feels like a lot of pent-up aggression.
Because I'm still pissed off about that moment, actually. You just brought it up fresh in my mind. But anyway, the articles that I had to write about these teams in Asia, because that's what I was writing them about, one of them was the Hangzhou Spark. And I was getting Wolf's opinion at the time because I was in Korea and I was hanging out with him. Wolf was of the opinion that the Hangzhou Spark were going to be a very good team, if not the top team in the world, with the roster they had because they made minimal changes. And I thought differently. I think there was so many teams that are being retooled and put together for a much better finish that this team, without the addition now of Architect or whatever, the only additions they made at the time, I think, were Coldest and Mika, which we haven't seen, and those are PR pickups. Let's face it; those are Chinese players that have been picked up to appease the Hangzhou audience.
I don't think we have seen Coldest. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think Coldest.
I feel like we have.
I don't think we've seen him
really early. Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I don't think we've seen him.
I might be wrong.
Oh no, he apparently did play against the Chengdu Hunters.
Yes.
Yeah, really? And that was week 12.
Yeah, I remember seeing Coldest. Yeah.
All right, Coldest did, but did Mika?
No, I don't remember seeing.
I remember Coldest coming in and thinking that's odd because he's speaks Mandarin. He doesn't speak Korean.
Yes.
So now you've got to try and fit him into your Korean talking structure. Anyway, Hangzhou's pickups have never made sense from the beginning. This has been a good one, but even still, this isn't going to fix this team. This team they looked good when they had weeks and weeks and weeks to play GOATs and get good at that comp. But now that it's changing so often, I agree with your point, Josh, with the hero pools. This team is being brutalized by hero pools. Like, brutalized. They are struggling on a week-to-week basis. You don't know what Hangzhou is going to be showing up.
Yeah. They've consistently lost to the Shanghai Dragons, but outside of that, they've just been like, I don't know. They've been pretty decent. They've actually been holding their own reasonably until recently, and then they went pretty heavily downhill. They looked really bad in the May Melee, and they looked pretty bad just before that, just falling off compared to Guangzhou. The two teams were pretty much head-to-head just before this, and then they fell off. But I think the addition of Architect can make this team good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how you can say adding Architect to this team's not going to give them a big boost and at least put them like heavily above like some of the teams that they could have been like splitting games with. I don't know
if this will help them that much.
Why? Why do you think it won't? Because he is a huge addition over Adora.
Adora, I don't think has been the biggest problem for this team.
What do you think the biggest problem has been? Yeah, that's what I was saying as well. While you were off to get your
honestly,
burger.
Though, with this addition, they might be better than Guangzhou now that Nero has to go get his visa.
Does he though? Because in this time off, he could have actually gone and got his visa.
Yeah.
So until we get an update on that, I don't want to assume that Nero's out of the Guangzhou charge.
Good point.
Yeah, because they previously were, my team of choice before I joined the Florida Mayhem.
Man, this chicken burger's good.
You deserve a player just absolutely dominating you, because this cannot go on.
Yeah, I mean, if any player out there can dominate me, then
he got dominated by
go for
Yaki. Are we forgetting this?
I didn't get dominated. I actually won.
Right, he beat you.
Yeah, but there was different parameters for winning,
Anyway,
wasn't there? So I actually won.
I think this conversation topic is over, so it's time to move over to the only thing that people care about each week, which is Bren's Player of the Week.
Ah, yes.
Nice.
Wait, are we doing power rankings?
Nah.
No. We can do them another week.
We're gonna skip power rankings. We're gonna do them later. We're gonna do them in another episode. You can look forward to that.
It's like a 2-hour episode.
Is it 2 hours?
We said again. Oh yeah, we said again. Let's make this one
at
quick.
the start, we said let's make this one a short one, but that's not my fault. You guys just talk a lot.
Mate, I'm having a blast. This
But you're,
wine bottle, I'm
you're
only
supposed to move us on, and you're the host, and you're eating candy and chicken sandwiches half the episode.
I have a very laissez-faire approach to hosting. I'm a bit like Semler. You remember when Semler hosted the Overwatch League that one time?
Yeah, but when
underrated.
Semler hosted the Overwatch League, when all the analysts I'm talking, he didn't sit there and eat a chicken sandwich and just stare back into the webcam.
Yeah, bro, what do you think? And he just let me talk. And then when the producers were saying,
"What do you think?"
When the producers were saying, "Semler, throw to the break! Semler, throw to the break!" He took out his earpiece and was like, Johnny, what do you think?" Oh yeah. Anyway, that's my style,
that was Bans.
I'm learning from the best. That was early on in the Overwatch League season 1 as well.
I love Semler.
Anyway,
all right. So,
player of the week.
Oh,
whoa, okay.
I don't know if there's any audio to that, but I said, "Are we still recording?" And then because that was when I was getting changed and didn't tell Kurt we were stopping recording. My player of the week this week is none other than Jonathan Larsson. Reinforce.
Oh my God!
What?
He gave it to
Johnny,
dude.
He gave it to Johnny
for
for
his
failing
dominant
to get a 14-day
performance
contract.
against Super.
This entire episode.
What about my dominant performance against Yaki?
Oh,
I don't care
this
about
entire
you.
episode, I've been hearing this UK Brit bonger trying to talk about him dominating Yaki when he got defeated like 19-5.
But
finally, we recognize the good players in this league. I'm gonna be happier. Thank you so much.
Actually, and I won myself a contract. And I'm in the Overwatch League. You're not. You've never been in the Overwatch League.
Johnny battered Super. He battered him in a 1v1. I think Johnny needs a 14-day contract.
It most definitely wasn't the 1v1 because I held shield while my team dominated Super. But I did a great job holding shield and charging, and that's what I do best.
Next thing you know, we're gonna be judging. We're gonna be judging frag movies, dude. It's gonna be Johnny submitting just solo kills on the pro players, dude.
With Pendulum in the background.
Music in the background, yeah.
Wow, I'm watching this clip now. I only saw 2 of these clips. You kind of pummeled him, dude.
The best part is the Curb the Enthusiasm music in the background. You'll have to go give it a like and retweet Sideshow so more people can recognize the strength, which is me.
Listen, I am always down. As a current Overwatch League pro, I'm always down for helping Tier 2 and Tier 3. So if I can help you, Johnny, get into the Overwatch League, I will do my best.
I will personally come after you and defeat you myself if one of these Overwatch League teams recognize what's real.
So bring it on. Hey, bring it on.
Thank you, Bren. Thank you so much. What do I win?
Some bullshit.
Thank you. I don't know why I'm saying thank you. Anyway, the show.
You're a treasure.
The show is over. But unfortunately for you guys, you now have to think up of a name for our Valorant podcast because it's airing roughly around now if you're watching this when it's premiering. It's coming up. Look on our feed, somewhere around there. It might be over there. Click on our channel. It might be over there. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere, and you need to come up with a name of it because we can't come up with one. So type that in.
Drop it in the comments.
Drop it in the comments. There was another thing I was going to ask you all as well.
Oh, yeah?
No, I forgot. No.